Good morning. We're going to go ahead and do this again. I didn't record the first time, so we'll go ahead and set it up and do our review. So when we talked about it the first time, we're going to go through it and we're going to talk about the 150 questions that are in here. I'm going to cover them, but there's also another video that covers others that might be on the test too. So there's two videos if you want to watch them. I would suggest taking notes because these are the same questions that come out of your class, the same questions that you've been asked during class for the most part. There might be a few others, but no, there's generally not very many different. So getting started, we're going to talk about the investigation report and how when you record an interview, we're not talking just speech recording. We're talking about copying and transcripting interviews and that kind of things. What those kind of things that should be included in recording. And when we're preparing to conduct an investigation, just remember we have to be able to figure out the tools we need, the equipment we need, even the number of personnel required, and be able to get those to our scene. As far as recording goes, again, uh, just remember it also requires before or it requires recording also requires inclusion of your bystanders, uh, photographs. I would say bystander your photographs more so than your bystanders, that kind of thing. But it could be both. As far as sabotage goes on fire protection systems, remember that setting multiple fires is the most common thing you'll see when they do sabotage to a fire protection system. That way, it overwhelms that fire protection system. When we talk about searching, we talk about perimeter guidelines for explosions and building fires should always allow about 1.5 times the distance of the fire origin or the last piece of evidence found in an explosion, which can be huge. Uh, know about the chemical processes associated with combustion. Uh, just know you have to have oxidation with that. Uh, remember, the room where the fire begins is always the area of origin, and the information source that you get. Look at your questions because some of the questions give you your answers. If it asks you about town or municipal government, that's pretty much going to be in your answer. Town or municipal clerk or city whatever it is, this county tax assessor, those kind of things. The federal know what federal places are too. Uh, Fire protection engineering, it always deals in relationships between fire alarm systems and requirements of buildings that need to be protected, and in our cases, as investigators, the engineering could talk about ignition sources and materials, and they might even be able to tell what started the fire. Know how low density uh, materials like sawdust burns compared to high density materials like a 2x4 or something like that. It burns a lot faster. As far as that goes, understand that when you make a presentation for information to a public court, be sure it's accurate and reliable and supported by the empirical data that you get. Okay, undisputed data. As far as information statements, they as far as solicitation of relevant and useful information in a statement should begin uh, basically at the fire scene. You're going as far as let me start that over. The solicitation of relevant and useful information in a statement should begin basically during preparation of that interview. You want to know what you're going to ask them, how you're going to ask them, that kind of stuff. Uh, know what civil litigation is. Uh, know that hazardous material incidents are a lot more complex than regular fire incidents, or yeah. And know what is conducive to creating explosive atmospheres, especially in storage and handling areas, flammable combustible liquids, and understand that the concentration of the vapors is what condition that makes the explosive atmosphere. Just know when you're taking photographs that you always want to do it same way as you would when you're doing a certain scene search, right to left, left to right, from least least damage to most damage areas. And when you get these things that say read the following statements, be sure that you're looking at what the statements are. Once chain of custody is broken, it cannot be restored. It's done. And understand chain of custody and how it works. It's if chain of custody is broken, it's valueless. It's no good. Uh, and I can't overemphasize how much that chain of custody has to stay intact, especially during fire investigations. Photographs, make sure that evidence photographs uh, know what they are. Evidence photographs are things like you photograph a gas can or a fuse box. It's those type of photographs. Know what low order explosions are and the characteristics of them. The balls are bulged out or laid over, one of the two, and your roofs can even be lifted off and laid back down too. But understand the difference between low order and high order explosions. Few people had trouble with that, so look at that. Understand that. Understand the minimal drawings you should have of a scene as a simple sketch. And I'm going to give you answers, or not answers, but to look up answers for these. There's 3 of them in this test, which I don't like, but that's just part of the situation here. Know how many amps a 10 gauge copper wire pushes. Also know how many amps 10 gauge pushes, and I'll tell you a couple of others here in a few minutes. Understand char patterns and the diagrams that they indicate as far as if the fire is, you can see if they're below grade, if you can see if they're burning up grade like this, whatever they are, you can look at the char patterns to see the fire diagrams. Let's see. Remember, electromagnetic waves is always going to be something to do with radiation from the sun or wherever it might be. There's a question that asks, and it says, while fighting a fire, a firefighter who observed a gas can in plain view, they can seize it as evidence. Yes, they can, and because it's still under exigent circumstances. They might be wanting to move it somewhere where it's safe so it doesn't blow up or get damaged or whatever. So understand that a firefighter can move it. It's not advised, but they can seize it and move it as evidence. You have to document that very well, though. As far as building construction, there's quite a few things on building construction. Know what building compression is, uh, and basically compression are pushing or crushing type of forces on buildings. Uh, Understand the best way to identify hazardous materials is the placards and labels that are on it. Uh, if you have a safety officer at the scene, your safety officer is going to be the ones that say you can enter the building or structure. Uh, Now, if your choice is and you don't have a safety officer, the IC is the one that says you can move into a burning structure. Okay. Know the differences between the explosion scene and the fire scene, and understand you're going to have a lot more debris in an explosion scene. Uh, just understand that you can have a lot more debris. Let's see. As far as know what you can get from your building department, they can actually tell you things like construction details. And a lot of times, most of the time, they even have diagrams of the buildings that have burned, that kind of thing, because they had to turn them in to be approved to put in the city. Know what sudden potential of kinetic energy is, and insofar as is it a detonation, explosion, or deflagration, uh, or you know that. Uh, know what an incendiary fire is, and remember, incendiary fire is not always arson. It's basically a fire that somebody started, and they started it on purpose. Uh, for instance, if they set a campfire during a windstorm of 40 miles an hour, they should know that it's not that you shouldn't ignite that fire. It is an incendiary fire if somebody sets that fire. Is it arson? Not necessarily, but it is incendiary. So, know what balloon framing is? Balloon framing goes from the studs, from the foundation to the eave lines of the house. There are no fire breaks in it. They go from the foundation all the way to the eave line of the house. And uh, understand what vector analysis is again, as far as the arrows that depict the interpretation of flame or heat spread, that kind of thing. What kind of diagram is that? It's a vector diagram or a vector analysis. Let's see. Know what kind of expert service that an expert witness provides, and that witnesses, expert witnesses generally provide opinions because they have the expertise on it. Uh, Understand what topography is, and and what parts are considered topography in wildland fires. Uh, Understand there's like 5 questions on building types. A lot of people have problems with these, so look at those. You're going to have masonry walls uh, with combustible members, that kind of stuff. It's going to be classified as a type. Combustible members. It's going to that would be masonry and combustible structural members. That's going to be type 5 construction, because your structural members on a type 3 are non-combustible structural members. As far as design and arrangements of service entrance switches, outlets, what kind of drawings are they going to be on? Of course, it's going to be electrical. Remember to read your question. Sometimes your answers are going to be in the question, like that type of thing. sudden converge of potential energy into kinetic energy, sudden is going to be an explosion, okay? Instantaneous, let me put this here. Instantaneous conversion of potential energy is a detonation, okay? Instantaneous. It's supersonic type. Is anything that says supersonic is going to be the detonation. Understand we still have to classify fires, so look at the classifications as accidental, suspicious, arson, unknown, that kind of thing, and compare that to the ones that are natural, incendiary, undetermined, accidental. So look at your fire classifications as the fire cause classifications and determine that. Understand wildland fuels are dependent on a whole lot on the moisture content, the wind speed, that kind of thing. In that case, it would probably be more the flammability of fuels is dependent on conditions, including the aspect and the low relative humidity. The low humidity is why they have so much trouble in North Texas, in California right now. The low relative humidity is what's causing all these fires to be out there and be so big. Remember, fire suppression personnel, they have to do security measures. They just have to limit access to that scene. As far as wildland fires go, the relative humidity on wildland, and understand that fires those kind of fires can create their own winds. The relative humidity makes a big difference, and fire and their own winds is called fire weather, and the regular wind that's out there too is also elements that are part of the wildland fires. Know what low pressure vehicles, how many, as far as do they use carburetors or fuel injection to give fuel to the engine, the low pressure vehicles. If evidence is observed and if you're not able to secure the location or protect that location, remember to draw the evidence where it was on your drawings and take photographs of it and draw it in. And understand again that the IC, if you don't have a safety officer there, then the IC is always going to, incident commander's always going to be in charge of whether you can go into a building or not, into a fire scene. Know a little bit about roofs, what a butterfly roof looks like, and what a monitor type and sawtooth type of roofs look like. Understand that most the times contamination of physical evidence comes during collection. So know the difference between contamination, where you get something on that evidence like gasoline or something that they might find in a lab after you put it on there, that kind of thing. Contamination is basically happens more so when you collect the evidence than any other time. The reason why we do fire scene reconstruction, why do we do that? Know what you would expect to get from a credit union. You might get payment records or something like that on somebody's mortgage or car or something like that. Know what a BTU is and the definition of a BTU, and quite simply, it's the amount of energy needed to raise 1 pound of water by 1 degree Fahrenheit. Okay, so Know what BTU is, British Thermal Unit. Uh, know what to know what to do when you're preparing for interviews. Okay. Uh, Understand what this is the definition of decomposition of a compound into one or more other substances by heat alone is what? Quite simply, I'll tell you, it's pyrolysis. And then think of the difference between, again, contamination and spoliation. Spoliation is basically, it's a general term that anything can taint physical evidence is what it is. Uh, uh, Actually, a better way to put that is spoliation is evidence that it's destroyed or damaged or altered when it's not preserved correctly. If you leave something in a bag too long, is it going to rot, spoil? Think of food when you think of spoliation and how evidence is destroyed that by that. And contamination is when you get something on the evidence that makes it that's going to get it misidentified or something like that. Let's see. If you have an appliance fire uh, that that spread to the other parts of the room, that kind of stuff, be sure to document. What am I trying to think of? Try to videotape the area, but determine the fire pattern and location of the appliance in that area of origin, just to be sure that that's it. Okay. You want to look and we'll get into this in a minute. When you do photographing the scene, uh, the primary purpose of that is to record and document the entire scene. Okay. Um, let's see. Think about the ignitability of dust air mixtures and what it's based on and the factors that you have to have as far as the the size of the dust particles, the impurities in the air, that kind of thing. And think look under your dust and air mixtures in your book there. Know what heavy timber construction is type 4 construction. Um, Remember that fire cause that cannot be proven is going to be undetermined. If you can't prove it, you can't really say what the cause was. So it's got to be undetermined. There's no other way around that. Know what the most common motive for arson fires is? Um, think about your exterior examination and what kind of things you would find during your your exterior exam. Okay. Um, Understand the preparation for the interview again, and know what you're going to do and what it relates to. Know the steps of a fire, the systematic approach to a fire investigation, uh, and know what those are. I'm trying to think. I'll tell you. I'll give you the first one. Is recognize the need. Okay. Remember when you evaluate your information from a witness, make sure it's accurate and reliable. When you're evaluating the witness sources, uh, know the different types of heat transfer, convection, conduction, radiation. Okay. Let's see. Know what calcinization is and how it works on gypsum and wallboard plaster. Let's see. Understand what ISO settings are for in depth of field are for photography. Let's see. Know who can establish the cause of death and manner of death is always going to be the coroner and or medical examiner. Let's see. Know what trailers are and they're not something that you pull behind your car. Not in this case, anyway. Let's see. Know what expert testimony regarding the origin and cause of fire determination is. It has to be based on scientific knowledge and accurate conclusions, reliability of those. Let's see. Remember, observation of evidence at a fire scene should begin with the first arriving fire units there, or police, either way. But the evidence of that scene, preservation of that scene should start with whoever arrives there first, and you'll want to document what they've done to preserve that scene. Understand that this is a question that has to be here because it's in the state stuff still. But digital photography used to have to be used before you used it had to be approved by the local prosecutors. It's used all the time now, but the answer to that question is a local prosecutor. Remember the diagrams with the arrows again that you use for flame interpretation. That kind of stuff is called vector diagramming. Fuel loads in a building. Don't forget that fuel loads also have things like interior surface coverings, what the wall's made out of, if it's rough or smooth, the furnishings, all those are interior fuel loads. That's still part of that interior fuel load. The construction type and framing is a fuel load, but it's not really the factors that you consider so much when you're thinking of the interior surfaces and that kind of thing. Let's see, public record information that you can get from municipal street departments. Think of silly things like maps, drains, conduits, easements, all those things can be given to you by a street department. And remember that arson fires usually develop much faster than accidental fires. Let's see. Know what your area of origin is usually going to be where the most severe damage is. Let's see, in the lowest part of severe damage. Know what type 3 construction is. Okay. Basically, the exterior walls have to be non-combustible or limited combustible. Let's go. Remember, you as an investigator have to produce reliable documents and statements, samples, information, and basically you have to have a that's not really the right there. You have to produce legal documents, samples, statements, information, and data, and have to have a reliable conclusion. So therefore, your documents have to be reliable, and your conclusion has to be reliable too. So think of that. Remember the private organizations understand that the U.S. Fire Administration is not a private organization, but the International Association of Arson Investigators is a private organization. It's a private, non-profit organization. So know the difference in them. Know what you can get from them. Let's see. Let's see. Fire cause classification, which involves a deliberate act, is always going to be incendiary. Okay. Understand that if a witness claims that while standing in a particular location, they were able to see fire in its incipient stage, the location is evidence based because of what they told you. Okay, it's an evidence based photograph. Know what the Arson Immunity Act is in relationship to insurance companies. Know what vapor densities are, and basically they're all based on the number one. If it's heavier than air, air is number equal to number one. If it's heavier, it's going to go down. It's going to sink. If it's above, if it's like 1.2, it's going to go down. If it's 0.9, it's going to go up. So think of that. If it's higher than one, it's going to go down. If it's lower than one, it's going to rise. Know what a floor plan sketch is and what it consists of. Understand that incendiary fires, they involve human intervention. Okay. Know what the definition of what arson is. Again, know what a butterfly roof is. Know what static electricity is. Understand what the layering process is. And there in the book, it talks about there's some different layering processes. So think about the questions you should ask yourself when you're doing layering process. Take things out in layers. When you're looking at depth of char grids, understand the plotting a graph on a paper shows. Just to understand that it can identify lines of demarcation, that sort of thing. Understand that interior photographs basically highlight rooms within an area of origin. Let's see. Think of the conditions that you have to note during a scene examination, the things that you have to look at and what might be there. Okay, that can include things like evidence or any evidence or any number of things like that. Know what building systems are and the major categories of those, your pipe services and energy production, that kind of stuff. understand that what a hypothesis is and what it should be based on. Okay. And understand when you're thinking of that hypothesis, understand what empirical data is too. Let's see. Public records, you would obtain what type of information from a municipal assessor? As an assessor is a tax collector, that kind of thing. So things you can get there. Recommended storage methods for fire debris with suspected accelerants on it. How you want to store that. I've had some people say that they would put them in an envelope, a manila envelope. Okay, what's going to happen? It's going to leach into the envelope, isn't it? So think of things like that. Know what type 2 construction is. Let's see here. Understand that heating steel beams, what that does is that it can cause conduction of fire heat from one part of a building to another. So understand that too. Understand that steel, if it's unprotected steel, can lose strength too. It won't burn, but it'll lose its strength, and it'll elongate out is what it'll do. Let's see. Understand that photographs, when you're in court, have to be relevant to your testimony. I know it goes without saying, but we have to say it because it happens. Know what an energy production system is, and generators are, and generators and what are those things called? Anyway, the generators are definitely energy production system. Also understand that I'm trying to think of what they're called now. Anyway, generators are part of a production system. Know what spoliation is, okay? Again, know what it is. It's very important, okay? Let's see. Know what an accidental fire is. It basically, if it's not an accident, a deliberate human act, and it's not something like electrical or whatever, it's that the accidental fires are basically don't have human interaction, quite simply. Know that your diagrams are supplements to your photographs and written notes. Your diagrams are. I don't like that question. It'll probably get thrown out. Automatic sprinkler systems are a yeah. Know what fire suppression systems are. Let's see. Know how many amps you can push through a 14 gauge copper wire. Look at your direct fire direction vectors in your wildland fires, okay, and how they look. Most of it depends on the topography and the advancing and backing, that kind of thing. Know what kinds of containers to put different types of accelerant evidence in, okay? Remember, if you cannot find the origin of a fire, you can't find the reason for the fire, the cause of the fire. You can't determine it if you can't find the origin of the fire. Goes without saying, but people have tried. Um, know the percentage of flammable substance in the air that'll burn when it's in contact with an ignition source. Is that your flash point, your ignition temperature, your flammable or explosive limits? Know what that is. Those are. Understand safety when you're doing interviews, and the people you should approach with caution when you're doing interviews and such. Um, when you're looking to determine the location or point or area of origin, just understand that it comes from several different things, and look to see what those things are. Uh, but there's a few of them out there, and look in your book there, and it'll give you point and areas of origin, and think of what you look at and who you talk to find that out when you arrive on a scene. Understand appliances fires and document the position and controls, and photograph those controls and the serial numbers before you do anything to disassemble or do anything else with that appliance. Okay. Let's see. And check with the fire department, see if they turned anything on or off on that appliance too. Uh, know what discovery is in your pre-trial phase of legal proceedings. Again, know what electromagnetic waves are, that they carry radiation. Uh, under marine vessel fires, uh, kind of look over those, and kind of just think about marine fires a bit. There's only one or two questions on those, but look into those. The transition phase during a compartment fire where all contents reach their ignition temperature and simultaneously ignite is called what? Okay, it's flashover. Let's see. Know what your county coroner and medical examiner can do for you in fire scene deaths. Know what mechanical heat sources are, the friction or compression, heat from compression or heat from friction, that kind of stuff on mechanical heat sources. Know what the function of process alarms are in factories. Okay, process alarms. Let's see. Understand the ways you can have a legal right to enter. Understand that it has to be either exigent circumstances or by some type of warrant. Okay, so understand that too. Or well, it can be you can have permission. I would say get written permission to enter, but understand you have to have a warrant or have exigent circumstances otherwise. Understand in a fire tetrahedron what the reducing agent is in a fire tetrahedron. That's in your fire science. When you collect physical evidence for exam and testing, it's also sometimes necessary to collect those comparison samples too. A few of you did that, but know that it's a good idea. That way they can't say it was everywhere, that somebody poured gasoline everywhere. Well, over in this corner they didn't. That kind of stuff. So think about that. Understand again what the layering process is and how it works with removing fire debris in layers. Understand what utility companies do for you, that kind of stuff. They can tell you if wires are hot or not. Uh, any number of things. They can tell you if the power's shut down. All these kind of stuff. Understand what written sources are as far as documents and reports. Uh, Understand what a wide V pattern at the base of a fire. It shows you a certain sign of that fire and how that correlates to the fire pattern and where it may have started. Let's see. Again, when you look at that drawings and designs, think about the sewer and water, electrical distribution, all that kind of stuff is going to be on a site plan. So I'm giving you the answer to that one. Your electrical distribution, water, sewer, property, electrical, all those together, electrical distribution, by the way, are going to be on the site plans, is what they are. Let's see. The main thing labs give us, the predominant services they give us, volatile accelerants. That's their main thing. They can give us fingerprints and they can give us footprint analysis and all that stuff. But the main thing they do is they give us the identify any type of accelerants or ignitable liquids. Here's another one on the wire size. Know how many amps move through 12 gauge wire. Okay, that's 3 of them there. Now I'm going to read to you, and I want you guys to think about this and this is going to think about what your answer would be. The oxidation reaction that results in extremely rapid, almost instantaneous oxidation of considerable heat accompanied by a violent disruptive effect and a supersonic speed. What is that the definition of? Okay. It's going to be explosion, deflagration, combustion, or detonation, one of the 3. Know what the term motive is. Understand that boats afloat should be approached with extreme caution because there can be water in the hull, and if it's moved, it could cause that boat to capsize. Understand that you can get an administrative warrant. Most fire marshals can issue administrative warrants, but they generally just allow entry into a fire scene to investigate the origin cause of that fire. You cannot get evidence out of that you can just investigate the origin cause. If you pick up evidence, you're going to have a search warrant for that evidence, or a search warrant instead of administrative warrant. Administrative warrant is for cause and origin only in our circumstances. Remember, U.S. Fire Administration is part of the federal government. They're up in Maryland if you want to go up there. Know what an arc is as far as the electrical term is, what an arc is. Understand that one of the most important aspects of photography is going to be your lighting. And if you're worried about what fragility is basically your evidence that disintegrates or breaks. It's fragile. So I've covered all 150 questions, and we're going to have this and another video. I suggest everybody looks at both videos, and that way you get a wide array of, a wide array of questions, because all these questions are randomized on these tests. So therefore you might have one on one test and not on another, that kind of stuff. So look at both of those. When you come in for testing, bring your laptop or your device, so you can take the exam online, just like you've been doing all throughout class. And basically, you will have your grade at the end of the test. It'll flash right there in your face, and you'll say, "Yay!" So, okay. So with all that, hope you guys have a good weekend and study hard. Your book is going to be your primary source. Okay. Thank you.